Hey, good evening, good evening, good evening. How y'all doing? How y'all doing? How y'all doing? Now, if I tell you the work that went in to me getting back to this point today, it would literally blow your mind. If I tell you the struggle and the fight mentally, spiritually, and emotionally it took me to get this live stream up, it'll blow your mind. So I'm not going to tell you of why it took me so long and so hard to get back to the African Speaks on Tuesday night. Now I'm a little late. I'm late by well, I'm not late because according to the ancestors, I'm right on time. According to the ancestors, I'm right on time. Everything happens when it's supposed to happen, especially when you're doing things and you're governed by a higher power. You can't always control the things that happen before or around or within you. All you can control is what is, the things that moment. I'm giving God my best sasa, which is my best second, my best now. And so working through my breakthroughs, right? So we're going to move forward with the African Speaks. And so we welcome you again. And we are always on that tip where we're focusing on the rise of the African. That way. Let me get my finger right. That way. Not in the lion's mouth. There. The rise of the African, our social media Pan-African movement. Man, I had some conversations and some meetings today with some people who are going to help move this thing into the future. So be ready for the growth of the world. The African Speaks. Be ready for the growth of the world of Akibaland, the youth program. Be ready for the growth and the movement of the rise of the African, because it's coming. It's coming. It's coming. We said 2022, that 22 was a divine number, and we said that number was focused on the universe, the power of God, the ancestors giving us a double portion of divine energy. And so if you could open up to receive it, it's been coming. It's been coming. And so for me, that there was a phase where, man, I was floating in air, but however, individuals around me was like just taking pot shots at me. Pop, 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 pop. It even got back to me who was taking the shots. I was like, what? Okay, so we're gonna work on that. We're gonna, we're gonna take that to ritual. We definitely taking that to ritual, because you're not gonna stop the rise of this African, and you're not gonna stop the rise of the African, of the individuals who are seeking the higher power and governance and God and the ancestors. It's just not happening. It's just not happening. So we welcome you here today. And we're always talking about that black power potential. What? Yeah, that black power potential. Now, this conversation tonight, the topic tonight, started because my church community, this is our anniversary month, right? And so this whole conversation manifests and developed itself behind the fact that it is our anniversary month. I didn't know that was on top of the lion, so y'all forgive me. But it's our anniversary month, and on our anniversary month, we was sitting here saying, let me take that off. Where's that? Okay, it's not even up there. Why is it showing the sound? Don't know why it's playing the sound of that. Right? So in that place of what's happening via our anniversary month, they said the slogan is reconnecting to our revolutionary spirit, or our revolutionary roots. Let me say that. Yeah, that's what it was. It was literally reconnecting to our revolutionary roots. I don't know why my face is not there. I told you it was a whole lot going on in between me working this out and me getting ready. It was a lot to deal with. And so there I go. I can work it. Right? So reconnecting to our revolutionary roots, like somebody forgot to be revolutionary. Somebody forgot purpose. Somebody forgot process and procedure of liberation. Reconnecting to our revolutionary roots. Like they gone somewhere. Somebody stripped them from our memory. And then that's when it hit. Wow. This was a conversation in the depth of the thoughts that was hitting me. Was a conversation about the science of memory. What? Yeah. Because when you got to reconnect something, that means something got disconnected, something got separated, something got pulled apart, right? When you got to reconnect something. So if you sitting down and you got a fan on and you don't turn the fan off, but you unplug the fan from its power source. That means unplugging it from its power source. It's disconnected from the place where it fuels its energy from, that electrical current, right? So if you got to reconnect, that means you was disconnected. Now in that thing, that means, so the power of memory is where everything for us is stored. Everything. And so there's so many levels of memory, so many different types of memory. Now, before we go into and dive deep into the type of memory that I want us to focus on, I want to take a listen to the griot. And in this, the great griot, right, is what it's called when you see the brother. And when you listen to a story, why remembering your real history is important and what it is, then we'll take you on a journey to understanding the science of memory. And so you cannot, let's go, let's drop this now and let's take a listen and see what he says, the brother says about memory and history and knowing it, connecting it, and why it's so important. And I'm going to drop something different on you. Let's go.
What you call black history, what you call African history, are the missing pages of world history. Now, because I've now begun to study European history, I began to understand how African history was misplaced in the history of the world. And the one thing that I learned repeatedly, you cannot oppress a historical people. And once a people understand the nature of their role in history, they will not permit themselves to be oppressed. In order to oppress you, people must remove you from the respectful commentary of history. They must destroy your confidence and historical memory. The memory of what you was, so that you can be confused about what you are, and more confused about what you still must be and where you still must go.
Now, I like to thank our African history class, because that's where I got that clip from, our history class. And then he kept saying memory. We have to destroy your memory. In order to oppress a people, you got to kill it. And so how important, so now he talked about areas of the Sasa, which is the past. And that's the past is actually your Zumani. Your present is your Sasa. And then you won't have a future. Now, in African spirituality, there's no word for future, because the most important phase in time is the now. That's the Sasa. And then what shows your level of wisdom, or what you should carry, is the length of your Zumani, time. Your memory of that time and what you've learned in that time. And if you can control someone's memory across the span of their Zumani and their Sasa, their past and their present, if you can control that, you can control them. And so I say this because in the process of anniversary month, where we go and we actually take the time to remember the things we went through, remember the lessons, remember the journey, remember the people, the lessons, the teachings Because in that statement where they say we have to reconnect to our revolutionary roots, that means somebody messed with our memory. Now, who could have did that? If we're in the same place all the time, who took our revolutionary roots away? Who changed us, uprooted us, and moved the plant? Who did that? Who messed with the Zumani, which alters our Sasa, where now we can't even visualize anything beyond that moment? We have to be careful. Now, normally on African Speaks, I don't drop scripture on you. We have conversation, but we tie it into a spiritual connotation, right? And so we're going to drop this one. And it's not a scripture, but it tells you what your enemy comes to do. An enemy comes to steal, kill, and destroy. Steal, kill, and destroy. So when you looking at, when I was thinking about the science of memory and the value of what goes in, if I can steal, kill, and destroy your memory, I can then control the projections of images that are in your mind, the projections of thought, the projections of ideas. I can control the power of your imagination if you allow me to kill the enemy, to kill, steal, and destroy. Now, when he says, and that was Dr. John Henry Clark, let you know, the great griot. And he studied, one of the brothers who also studied under our teacher, Jermoja Baby Ajiman, years ago. Before he wrote his first book, he was sitting in our classes. He would literally, the story is, he would literally take the lessons he would learn from Jermoja Baby Ajiman and write his books with it. I heard, that's the story I heard from the individuals who've been in our church. We 69 years deep. And they said, yeah, it goes way, way back in the day. And so that's just what I heard. However, what's wrong with that? Because what he did was he said, I'm going to help you free those locked mindset. Now, in that process of stealing, killing, and destroying memory, there's a process to that. There's a process, because the process of memory, 3 steps. 3 steps. The encoding, the storage, and the retrieval, right? So if we can control what goes in you, and there's levels of your consciousness and your subconsciousness. The consciousness is that memory up here, is that current fresh memory. That subconscious is that deeper level of why you do things. Sometimes you do things in your life and you have tendencies in your life and you don't know why. It's because of the encoding. The encoding kept hitting the fresh part of your memory, which is your conscious. And it kept hitting your fresh memory of your consciousness until it got downloaded unto your subconscious. And now you don't know why you don't like something or you like something. It's just, you say it's just my personality. No, it was based off of your coding, your encoding. That is what was stored in you. And so when you retrieve that data, sometimes we like to think that it's us retrieving that data, but it's not. It is how you decided to choose yourself to be encoded. And that's what he said. When I started studying European history, I understood how we became the people that we aren't. Wow, I'm going to say that. We became the people that we are not. Because this is not a people walking the face of this earth when you're looking at our melanated state. People build nations. First, a people have families. A people have community. A people have neighborhoods. People have states. People have institutional power. people have a global conversation that affects their people across the globe. So studying history shows who we are not when you're studying through the European eye. Why? Because of how they want to encode your memory. Man, when I started looking at this issue of memory, the science of, and I'm not going to get too deep because I can continue this because, again, there's layers. There's so many layers. But according to the encoding, the storage, and how we retrieve what wasn't stored in turn, and you can see the retrieval is a manifestation of our actions. That's what it is. And when we retrieve it and we look at life on a real level, this is how we are. And y'all know I've used this images for a minute because I needed to sink into your thought process so that you understand what we fighting against. We're trying to free that mindset. Free you from the wrong encoding. Why? Because there was an enemy that came to steal, kill, and destroy your divine identity. Not because you got people walking around, you know what I mean, being free and acting a fool. You have your own friends who will sit down and tell you you can tell when they start treating you like they don't see the God in you, especially when you start walking in your purpose and then they realize that they can't keep up or they choose not to keep up. They start acting a certain way. They start being a certain way, which is not cool. Now, because what they do is change your projections of yourself. You allow it. You don't want that. You don't want that. When I see myself allowing somebody to change my mindset, I don't get mad at them. I get mad at me for allowing them to change the perceptions of the things that I see. Ain't that something? So when we look at memory, we talking about those 3 layers. Black folk, we talking about those 3 layers. I need the African and you speak your sensory memory. In your sensory memory, that's the eyes, ears, nose, mouth. That's going to be the current, right? Your sensory memory. You sit down and you see fire and you touch it. Hot, you jump. Now, the next time you go to fire, you're not going to touch it. Why? Because you remember your senses that's hot. I went to the beach with my daughter to do a ritual. And we did an ancestral ritual by the ocean. Powerful. Powerful. We saw instant changes. And while we were standing there, we went into and we walked in the ocean water. And it's been years since I've been at the water. Now, this wasn't on this side. We were over there. We were in Oregon. She's in Oregon. Man, we stood in that water. And when I'm trying to tell you that it was nothing but pure cold. And it shot up my spine. And I was like, ouch. And I said, you know what? For the ancestors who chose to commit suicide because they knew that death was better than bondage, one love. Because that was not an easy way to go, but it was the easiest way to go than dealing with slavery. So we got a choice. Ain't that something? Sensory. What you see, what you hear, what you smell, what you taste. That's light. The other issue is the short-term memory. And that's just something quick. Now, you want to know what it's like to not have memory? Have you ever walked in a room to go do something and you get to the room and you forget why you're in there? That's how Black people live on a daily basis and we're not aware of it. The room is the world. And we walk every day within the world without the awareness of why we were sent to the room, which is earth. Man, I can teach this thing. I can teach this thing. In the beginning, the Creator called us. He said, I knew you before I formed you in the womb. We had conversations with the Creator. It was divine consciousness having a conversation with itself, which is a piece of divine consciousness. I created man in my image, mankind, not male. because the book says I created man in my own, our own image. We're going to create one male and one female. There are two creation stories in the Bible. I go with the second one. I don't go with the first one. I rock the second one because it states that God knew he was going to need to create man and woman simultaneously. Because if I create one being, that being will be on the planet lonely. To say that God only created one man is to say that God knew, he didn't know that that one being was going to need company. Nope. I'm going to say he created man and woman simultaneously, and because of the muscle and the strength, the physique of the man being able to overpower the woman, that's why we live in a patriotic world. But our short-term memory is our life here on earth. Short-term memory. We forgot who we are in our short-term memory. We wake up every day and we interact in the world as though we don't know who we are in God. We don't remember the conversation. We don't remember what's going on, which is a difficult situation. Now, what we want to talk about is that long-term memory. Yeah. That memory where it's not, you remember so far back in your sasa that you tap into something where it's buried so deep inside you, and it's not necessarily your brain matter. We're going to talk about the memory of your DNA. Now, this is the scenario where God placed information in your being, more data than any other creature. The black man and the black woman has more data in their DNA than any other creature walking. And if you look at how the DNA unravels, it is as though someone has coded you and stored something in you. And as you move every day, if I pluck a hair out my face, the encoding changes. And it says, grow another hair. It's in your DNA. And so not only is the process of aging in your DNA, but there's intellectual capacity in your DNA. And it's something that you have to tap into. It's stored in you, and we're trying to retrieve it, right? So when we sit there and say we're going to get back to our revolutionary roots, well, that means somebody changed the encoding. What happened between now and then? My encoding hasn't changed. Don't know about you. I don't need to tap back into my revolutionary roots because my encoding hasn't changed. I might need to enhance the revolutionary fervor that I already have, but I don't need to tap into anything. I don't need to get back to anything. Why? Because I'm already there. COVID has changed the lives of black people. For some, yeah, we went straight in survival mode. We didn't care about community. We didn't care about family. We cared about, are we breathing? And that's what a pandemic will do to you. But in the midst of that pandemic, what we talked about at the beginning of 2022, from 2019, forget that, going into 2020, going into 2021, going into 2022, we're saying that God has given us more time to work out what is in our DNA. And I said, if you come out of COVID worse than when you went in, that means you didn't give God no time. But if you didn't come out leveling down, everybody talked about leveling up. I said, yeah, let's reach other levels. And there's two ways to go. In the world, we can level up. In God, we level down. Why? Because it's the depth of our wisdom that makes the difference. The depth of our understanding that makes the difference. Tapping into your greatest self. And what that requires, surrender. Now we can talk about surrendering. That is my favorite vocabulary word. Surrender. Surrendering to a power greater than you. You got to acknowledge that first. And without the acknowledgement of the higher power, because then, you'll start functioning from your own ego. right? And usually when black folk and with our conditioning, we're functioning from our ego because we can get up and go and do what we want. We really assume that we are without the chains. We are free. But then when you truly surrender to the creator and you pick up the practices, the practices of unlocking inner truths. And that's diet, that's prayer, that's meditation, yoga, movements, tai chi. That's communal interaction and living. That's giving as you are able and only taking as you have need. It prepares you to see you before the false levels of encoding happen through society. The African in you begins to speak. And I don't know if y'all seen it or y'all watched it or y'all noticed it, that there's an awakening, but well, let me drop this before I get to this next point, because I love the sister the way she dropped it. Your memory of who you are. When you break the bonds of what the slave master made you, you see yourself the way God created you. The culture, the creativity, the spiritual energy and power, the intellect, swag. I was grateful for the sister when she dropped it, because what it's saying is when you break the chains and the holes of the downloads, the false downloads of society, you see yourself in a total different space. And it's not just how you walk, it's what you build with it. You can tell when you still a slave versus a free black man and woman walking in royalty, nobility, in the essence of who God created you, by what you create and build around you, not for the sake of yourself, but for the bond that you have with those you see every day and those who will come behind you. That is who we are. We actually walk into a realm of understanding how powerful we truly are when you deal with the science of your memory. So you always have to be careful of what you are intaking, what you're ingesting in your psyche. Music, movies, what you read, what you see, all of it. Because it will either bring you closer to who God will call you, who have called you to be, or take you away from it. So then the question is, how you trying to live? Are you trying to live through the eyes of the oppressor? Are you trying to live through the eyes of your ego? Are you trying to live through the eyes of the creator? And how can we tell what you're doing? By how you living. Are you living through the eyes of the creator? And I always tell you, in the black power potential, what would the world look like if we had the numbers of the African diaspora functioning from the memory of who we are in the creator before we were given this physical assignment, and when we were told the medicine that we were supposed to bring to earth as a people. Individuals is nice, but what would the world look like if we did it as a people? That's the black power potential when you come in to understand the science of memory. And there's so many layers to this, and I could go into so many areas and relate different because we're dealing with in that space genetic memory. Our genetic memory has a depth that cannot be quantified. And some of us tap into that genetic memory. See, I'm about to go in some more. Some of us have the ability to tap into that genetic memory. Example, I wasn't trained to do none of this. Graphics, design, no. It was me sitting down looking at it saying, how does that work? And I figured it out. And it became so natural, like, this is what I do. Genetic memory. Some people have the ability to sing, write music. Genetic memory. My daughter's ability in mathematics to take equations and just break them down. She tapped into her genetic memory. She said, Daddy, it just comes natural. So when you find yourself in the process of your surrender, ask the Creator, ask the ancestors to help you tap into what you were created to be and do. And so that individuals around you can experience the wealth of wisdom inside your genetic and spiritual memory. That's a whole nother level. That spiritual memory. Told you there are levels of this, y'all. And I'm gonna have to come back and visit the concept of the science of memory. And I'm gonna start jotting down all the different areas of memory that allow us to manifest our greatest selves. We're talking about the rise of the African in you by unleashing that memory that is deep in your DNA, deep in your genetics, and taking apart those practices in life that unleash it. Where people are, yes, meditating, they're changing their diets, they're doing everything to fine tune the mechanism in which we are. We are literally the most sophisticated piece of equipment walking the earth. I'm going to say that again. We are the most sophisticated piece of equipment walking the earth. And because we have allowed a system and a science or a society to control what we know consciously, that affects what we know subconsciously, where we become a non-people that have no bearing on the world around us. But that is not our beginnings. And so that is why it is important that John Henry Clarke says you got to understand history through the eyes of the African, through the eyes of God and what God created us to be and what we brought the earth. There is no society that is not influenced by African society. There are two major societies that built the way people run societies today: Kemet and Kush. Excuse me, you said Kush. Because Kemet was not before Kush. Kemet is a daughter, or how they say, Kush is the parent civilization of Kemet. That's the best way to say it. Kush, which was a larger empire, is the parent civilization from Kemet. Kemet is actually the immigrants of Kush. And so getting back to those civilizations, it was those two civilizations that gave all the world wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. Now, we wouldn't get there if we didn't take the time to access that data. So they will put a book in front of you now, and a conditioned mind won't see what a liberated mind sees. You won't. You get put a book in front of a constricted minded individual versus a book in front of a liberated minded individual. They're going to get two perceptions of life and views. Won't be the same. And it says, well, two people can read the book and not get the same thing. This is true. But a slave and a free mind So we're looking at life. That's the book of life. A person who is liberated in their mindset knows that we have to connect as a people and build together. An individual who still lives from that constricted mind that is dominated by the wrong data, the wrong encoding, where your hard drives stored all the wrong data on both levels, conscious and subconscious. Anything that's retrieved out of you works on the benefit of that which that came to kill, steal, and destroy your identity. So when you embrace your culture, embrace your identity in God, have your life embody the practices of opening yourself to your genetic memory and capability, you realize that the body can do incredible things. And all cultures are figuring that out now. But the thing is, when we figure it out, we become a whole different being more than everybody else. Why? Because it's just built in us that way. That's not something that doesn't, I'm not going to say, oh, we better than you. They're our offspring. Every other people come from us. So we're not knocking them. No. We just got to get tired of being on the bottom of the population totem pole. So when you open up, what do you focus on? Getting back to who God calls you to be and do. And it's reflected in everything you build. There is nothing inside you or nothing produced by your hand that does not generate the rise of the African in you. Because that's where we started and that's where we end. The rise of the African in you. Now, I always sit down and say, if you watching me on Facebook, and I just jumped in it, you watching me on Facebook, like, comment, share. Trust me, they've been after me for months now, and they changed my algorithms. Let's get this algorithm back. If you're watching me on YouTube, please hit the subscribe button, notification bell, so every time we go live, you see it. And if there was something that you saw that you enjoyed, it triggered a thought, science of memory, or you want to dive deeper into it, yeah, change your diet. Meditate on just being light. Speak out loud to your ancestors. Speak out loud to the Creator and tell them that you seek to tap in to your greater self. This is not just a physical journey, it's more of a spiritual one because we are spiritual beings. You do those things, and when I talk about this again, I'll have clear steps because we've done this on World of Akibla. You will definitely see the rise of the African in you. And with that, you will see a world changing to a grander order of things. With that being said, yeah, one love. Let the African in you rise. You have a blessed evening.